You wouldn't care if somebody called you a Cadillac, would you? By the end of this episode, I hope that you will be empowered to remain courageous when faced with criticism that perhaps may be too harsh. Why in the world am I wearing this? I don't need this. Handling criticism is definitely a muscle that you have to exercise over time. There's many cases where you really want feedback from a professional or from your peers in order to improve the look or feel of your art. Sometimes it's a little not so constructed, and then other times it's wonderful feedback, but mixed in with a little bit of tough love. Hopefully with these points, you'll be able to navigate some of that gray area complexity of receiving feedback. So let me know down below, what was the time that you were faced with a critique that you really didn't know how to handle properly? First and foremost, it's really important to understand and recognize your strengths. Yes, there are things that we will always want to be improving at, that we feel that we are weak in that skill or that we are still trying to understand the concepts of. But knowing your strengths will help empower you to feel more confident when you're trying to find a soft point. By allowing ourselves to become aware and confident in our abilities will make it a lot easier to receive feedback and criticism. We can handle it objectively rather than through pure emotional reaction. In fact, knowing our strengths can help us take risks in our art and help us find our artistic identity a lot easier. We might need to improve in certain areas, but at least we know that we can hit certain creative objectives really well, or we can work a spreadsheet, or we're awesome pet owners. And then as far as feedback is concerned, it's important to be able to recognize which advice is pertinent to our style growth and which advice is actually detrimental. If there's a goal that you have in mind when you're reaching out for feedback, take the pieces that make up the building blocks to reach that goal. Break down those larger chunks into smaller objectives to aim for, and then create a plan on reaching that goal. Next, you need to let go of perfectionism, and I am super guilty of this one. You see, perfectionism is a very toxic trait for an artist, and even as a person. We can't allow ourselves to be consumed by achieving perfection, because in order to get good at things, you have to make mistakes. It's part of the process. You won't always be on all the time. You will have your days. There will be certain days that you just cannot perform all that well. You just can't hit that creative goal. The art is just not vibing with what you want it to look like or feel like. That's just going to happen. And you need to understand that you can't always be perfect all the time. Allow yourself to not be perfect all the time. If you're too hyper-focused on getting it right, you will miss the whole point of the experience of learning a skill. In fact, if you were to try and teach a certain skill, if you don't know all the ways that somebody can mess up, you wouldn't even be able to help the person be able to avoid collisions or issues. You want to make mistakes so that your experiences, your pain points, can help somebody else, bring them up, get them through those problems. Which naturally leads us to embracing the concept of growth. Growth and change, it requires us to be out of our comfort zone. And just like exercise with a aching muscle, which I'm feeling right now after trying Pilates, is just how you get better at something. It is how you improve. In fact, right now I'm doing multiple takes on the camera because I am still not used to talking like this. And it's just a muscle that we have to work on, right? And it's usually difficult to get started, especially when you're new to an issue or a skill set or a new software per se. But when you keep at it, that muscle will grow. But sometimes there are actual boundaries. You should always remember that when you're receiving constructive criticism and the person is actually giving you a fairly thought out response, that usually it is coming from the angle that they are trying to help you out, that they're not coming with ill intent, that they actually want to help you succeed. However, sometimes word choices do actually hurt. Everybody has heartstrings and everyone's emotions can be pulled at some point. And hopefully the things that I've mentioned before can help buffer that a little bit, make it a little easier so you don't reach that boundary all that easily. But there is a boundary. And when you reach that point, there are a couple things that you can do. Firstly, when you reach that moment where someone says something that actually legitimately hurts, it's easier said than done, but try and take that moment before you actually respond to remember that, hey, that person actually had a couple points. I can at least work with that and we'll move past this. That person doesn't know me as well as I know me. So how could they understand that their words impact me the way they have? And then try in that moment to swap out with whatever they had said with as if they called you a Cadillac car. You're not a Cadillac. You're the Cadillac. It means nothing. It carries no weight. It has no relevance whatsoever. It holds no power over you and it does not define who you are. So breathe and thank them for their feedback. And then once you move forward, take that little bit of advice they gave you and throw it out. Not every comment is good advice. If it is, however, too much, take a moment, wait some time, and then reach back out to them and say, hey, by the way, thanks for taking the time to give me feedback. However, I just wanted to let you know that this had hurt me. I respect you very much. I know that you respect me as well, but I just want to set that boundary for you. You can find the wording, whatever's natural. Keep a positive frame of mind and never let criticism stop you from creating your unique art. Now, what about all the other toxic habits that artists do to each other?